I can see the future. Oh, what the hell? She didn't see that coming?
Welcome back to another N-Cut movie review. Today we have Man and Web, arguably the best movie that Sony has ever made, with no hyperbole. Or maybe with all the hyperbole. Now let's roll this intro so we can explain exactly how bad this movie is.
To start out, I know we sometimes say a bit of hyperbole on this channel, or maybe in the title is a bit of hyperbole, but this is not hyperbole right now, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the worst movies you are ever going to see in your entire lifetime. If you unfortunately made the mistake of going to see this movie, you will understand what we're talking about, and if you haven't seen the movie yet, don't even put it on for like your worst enemy. If you had to torture me, you would put this movie on repeat in a locked room, padded cell, and I would watch this movie. Within 5 hours I'd break.
I'm pretty sure the CIA made MK Ultra victims watch this. That's how bad it was.
This was made by MK Ultra people. This was made to MK Ultra all of us.
Yeah, Charlie Manson.
Josh and I literally, before we walked into the movie, we said word for word, bar for bar, scene for scene, flow for flow. This is what the opening of the movie is going to be, and we picked it. We literally picked it from a mile away. That's how easy this was to read out what this movie was. Not to mention all the inconsistencies, not to mention all the plot errors, all the plot points that just didn't make any sense. Now, Dakota Johnson stars as Madam Web. She got her powers from her mother, who was bitten by a spider. Fast forward 30 years, Dakota Johnson is a paramedic. She's an NPC, actually. She's genuinely an NPC in this film. Talking to herself, like the whole movie, just talking to no one on the screen. Pure NPC chat, Oblivion style. Like, I've seen better chat in Skyrim. I took an arrow to the knee. I used to be a great soldier, then I took an arrow to the knee. This is the kind of chat that we had in this movie. Now, she has some flashbacks or something. I don't even know what she's doing in it. She's just shit. Then it cuts to her. She's driving. She just has a little smile on her face. What is she smiling at? She's driving someone to the hospital who's dead. Ben Parker, fucking the young version of him, played by
Derek from Step Brothers.
Played by the guy who plays Derek out of Step Brothers, right? Adam Scott, great DJ.
The great golfer.
Yeah, Adam Scott, yeah. But he's played by Adam Scott, the golfer. Anyway, he's giving CPR to this chick in the back of the ambulance while Dakota Johnson's driving, right? CPR for 10 minutes. She's dead, flatlined. Then all of a sudden, it skips to the next scene. They're in the hospital. Oh, thank you, my mum survived. How did she survive? She was dead 5 seconds ago. No explanation. And some little kid gives her a drawing and she's like, what do I do with this drawing? Ugh. What do you mean what do you do with this drawing? The 4-year-old kid just gave it, you take it, you say thank you. She goes, oh, I'll just throw it out right now. And then Ben Parker, just the worst dialogue. No, you put it in your pocket and you take it away with you. What is this NPC chat we have going on here? Now, Dakota Johnson, she is clinically dead for like 10 minutes. Somehow just pops up alive. Her co-worker, who's a paramedic, is just like, okay, well, your BPM is fine, your heart rate's cool, we'll let you live, we'll just let you go. Doesn't need to go back to the hospital for blood work, doesn't need to go back. She was dead for 10 minutes. Clinically dead for 10 minutes.
And how the fuck he jumped off that bridge to save her? It's literally a fucking 100-meter drop. The guy would be hitting concrete.
Yes.
If that's what it'd feel like. So you're telling me Ben Parker, who doesn't have spider powers, none of that shit, dives in there after she gets trapped in this car and falls off a bridge, and then he saves her life after 10 minutes of no brain activity because she's in the fucking ether? She's with the Eternals over there?
And he literally says to her, hey, you were out for like 5-10 minutes. I don't know how you're still alive. So how did you get down from up on the bridge, down to the bottom of the foot of the bridge, in the water, without this car sinking all the way to the bottom and her to the depths, like fucking Doc Ock, and then pull her out of the water, resuscitation, in 4 minutes? So from then on, the movie just gets dumber and dumber and just becomes absolutely nothing. The writing in this was just deplorable. I don't know who wrote it. I reckon it was written by AI. Had to be.
Had to have been.
The film is set in 2003. It prefaces this right at the start of the film. And the main villain here, he keeps having a reoccurring nightmare. And the reoccurring nightmare shows Sydney Sweeney and the other 2 Spider Girl people in his dream killing him. And he has to like try and figure out how can I stop these girls from killing me? And then it cuts to a scene where he has 2024 technology and he has the perfect portrait of these 3 characters who he's never seen in real life. And they are in their Spider-Man gear. It's like a 4K photo. How can he have it if they're not even Spider-Women yet? It's literally the photo from his dream. He's somehow taken it out of his brain and put it perfectly on the screen. This photo doesn't exist in the timeline that he's in right now. And yet he has it. How? How does he have this photo?
Man has 2026 technology. We're not even there yet.
And he gets this technology right by he seduces an NSA agent and he kills her and then takes her special key that gives him essentially access to the God's Eye. For the rest of the film, no one's looking for this agent. No one's trying to find where she is. She works for the government. She's NSA. No one tries to find where she is. They're just like, oh, she died and someone took her key and now they probably have access to our #1 security protocol system. Oh, We should be right. We'll just let him go.
And that is not the first time that this has happened. At the very start of the film that we've already mentioned, he's with Madame Web's mum and kills her and all of the scientists that are studying spiders there. And you're telling me that not one single person has looked for them after 30 years.
There's a specific scene too where she sees a vision of the future where one of her co-workers is about to crash their car and potentially get killed. And we skip to this scene happening, and this guy hops in an ambulance. They're on a wharf, and he's driving his ambulance towards the water, and then a truck comes from absolutely nowhere and cleans him up. And yet when they do the aerial shot of where this actually happened, the van that this guy was driving straight off the wharf into the water, and the truck, which was going 80 kilometers an hour and had enough impact and force to kill this guy on impact, was coming from nowhere. It was coming from inside the factory. A semi-truck, a B-double, come from... Where were they driving to? Who the fuck were they driving to? This truck appeared out of thin air. The hospital transport guy, O'Neill, was driving straight off the wharf, and he just dies instantly. And then her freaking co-partner is just like, oh, it happens, let it go. No distraughtness, no post-traumatic, nothing, just it happens.
And I just had a barbecue with the guy yesterday. By the way, speaking about the barbecue, when she rocks up after all this, they're trying to convince her that she's fine and she's not going through a PTSD moment. She's not allowed to have a beer. They preface that. Then everyone at this little cookout is NPC driven.
Yes.
They're all throwing up a drink to her.
Yes.
Here's a beer. Hi, nice to see you. And it was clear she knew no one.
Oh, she had a cookout where she knows no one. Clearly, these are all people at this cookout that are her fucking co-workers, and they act like NPCs towards her. This whole movie, everyone's acting like an NPC. Every single character, even Sydney Sweeney and those other girls, are just acting like NPCs.
One thing that I noticed about the plot and how weak it was, there was no other use for her powers unless it was convenient to the plot. That is the type of plot armor that they've just thrown in here, and that's definitely a shout out at not just the writers but the director. Director hasn't done a movie. I think they did one episode of Game of Thrones that was over budgeted and thrown out. So then probably the worst scene to ever occur in human history has ever played out on screen. Madame Web's on this carriage. Now she has a vision, and the vision shows 3 girls being killed by Ezekiel, by the evil Spider-Man, on this carriage. As Madame Web comes out of that vision, she jumps up and sees the 3 girls assemble on the carriage like the Avengers, runs over and goes, someone's going to kill you, you need to jump off this carriage right now. All of them collectively say, we don't know who you are, why would we get off? And then on their own volition, get up and proceed to leave the carriage. All of them. Not only is that a continuity error that's ridiculous and has no logic to it, but the dialogue after that when they're on the platform is even worse. Sydney Sweeney barely yells, barely even raises her voice and goes, I'm being abducted, help. That's what she says, probably that loud too. And there's cops 20 to 30 meters behind them who are having a conversation, don't hear it, don't turn their head, and continue to have their NPC conversation. The scene continues to the evil Spider-Man trying to kill them, and every single New York officer is in this subway somehow, spawned in to this subway, trying to arrest Madame Web because of what Sydney Sweeney just said. To me, if you're a cop with that type of hearing, you need to be promoted. You obviously got your own superpower going on. Maybe work for the CIA instead. It might be a better option. Somehow the evil Spider-Man just loses him. The movie just continues. No logic to it whatsoever.
And these girls don't know each other from a bar of soap, right? And there's a scene where Ezekiel's right-hand girl says, they're all in this subway or they're all at this train station and none of them know each other. There must be some sort of connection between all 3 of them. And then never ever says what that connection is. Never explains why they're at the train station at the same time as Madame Web happens to be there. Just no explanation.
And also in that scene, she takes her jacket off about 45 times because she has 45 flashbacks. This is what I'm saying with the plot. The fact that it was only convenient to the plot is when she could use her powers. It made legitimately no fucking sense.
And that also draws back to the fact that why has she not been able to have flashbacks for 35 years? All of a sudden, she's just been able to have it. She's a paramedic. You're telling me that she hasn't had high-stress situations where that's happened before? Come on now. She would have had that 3 times a day.
There's also another scene where they're put onto a newspaper like the Wall Street Journal or whatever 2 hours after that. 2 hours.
It's front page news. 3 girls kidnapped, and they have a clear description of the perpetrator being Dakota Johnson. 2 hours after she has supposedly kidnapped these kids. How did it get front page news?
It's amazing. It's amazing how quick these news articles can work now. Obviously in 2003, they were doing something completely different compared to now.
I'm pretty sure they print newspapers like the day before for the next day. So how the hell was she front page news? And someone recognizes the girls? So this guy sees the 3 girls walk in the diner and goes, that must be the 3 missing girls. There's no photo of the girls on this front page. He just randomly thinks to himself, oh, they must be the 3 missing girls in a diner where there's like a whole football team in there of young people the same age as them, and he just thinks that must be the 3 missing girls. How? The main bad guy, his voice was just dreadful in this film. I think half of it was like voiced over or something. Like I swear, like I said before, his voice didn't even match up with his lips moving, because it just sounded like it was voiced over. Or like maybe he did it during filming and they just didn't like it, so they went back and redid it all in a booth. I don't know. But the voice acting and just the acting in general was just terrible. Just terrible.
Another plot point that didn't make any sense whatsoever was Dakota Johnson now wants to figure out how to work her powers properly. She now finally wants to know, how can I harness these things? So her answer is, let me fly to Peru and go meet the natives where I was first born at, because I've read a little bit of a book that my mum wrote 30 years ago, and I can find exactly where that is in hectares. We're talking millions of hectares of jungle, and she can find the exact spot from where these people are with no visions. This is when the visions do not come in. And then she finds the guy who is dressed in native clothing when they first open up the movie, and then he's just in a normal, like, chilled out suit. It makes no sense.
He's just Jerry from down the road.
Literally. And he just comes in and starts telling her, you got to go to the Fountain of Youth, you touch that, then you can start to harness your powers. And then he becomes Aristotle. Man puts in every philosophical question possible, and then she figures it out. Read a book. Read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, and you could get the same thing out of that. Why'd you have to fly to Peru, waste your money, waste your time?
She's able to fly to Peru? She's not on a no-fly list. She's not being, like, searched for by the cops. Yet the cops on the subway, who had no idea who she was, were able to arrest her. And then she can just go back to her apartment. There's no one searching her apartment. There's no one looking at her apartment. Like, it makes no sense. Errors everywhere.
Yeah, plot deficiencies all over the place, especially when they start to wrap this absolute bullshit of a movie up. They then go to Ben Parker's house and trying to hide the girls while she's over in Peru. And at this time, Ben Parker's wife is pregnant. And then she goes in labor. And then all of a sudden, these girls who are hunted, apparently on every newspaper in 2 hours, every TV show within 30 minutes, and every cop knows their name. And the girls leave the house because they want to help Ben Parker. They actually didn't even say that. I'm just putting that two and two together, that they want to help. It didn't make any sense for them to go whatsoever. They've been laying low for a week and they haven't been found. Wouldn't she continue to lay low until Madame Webb gets back from Peru?
Literally.
Wouldn't that be the idea? To then not get hit by this guy, you have no idea where he's coming from and why he wants to kill you because they didn't get answers. Like, it literally doesn't make any sense.
And then Madame Webb gets back from Peru and gets to Ben's house literally 5 minutes after they leave. What? What are the chances that she timed that so perfectly that she got back 5 minutes after they left? And then she steals an ambulance. Just out of nowhere, just steals an ambulance. And she's still driving in this same taxi that she stole 40 minutes ago in the film. And she crashed it through a diner, and yet it still drives. And there's no, radio call out over the fact that there's a stolen taxi just driving around with a smashed front end, doing just whatever it wants to do. There's no cops that see that and go, hey, that looks a bit suspicious. And they don't have their powers throughout the whole movie. It's like, what was the point of this movie at all? We came to this movie to see 3 girls kicking ass as spider people, and yet it just doesn't happen. And it's weird too, because Sydney Sweeney and Isabella Merced are just dressed up in outfits to make them look like
eye candy.
Eye candy, yeah. And they're acting as 14, 15-year-old high school girls. Like, there's a scene where they're in a public diner and they just jump up on the table where they're supposed to be laying low, and they start dancing on the table and they start trying to, like, look sexy for this group of, like, I don't know, football guys from a local school or something. They're meant to be 15 years of age. Who wants to watch that?
Who wants to watch 15-year-olds tabletop dance?
And 15-year-olds don't do that, and they especially don't dress the way... Sydney Sweeney was essentially dressed in a porn star outfit this whole movie.
Yeah.
In the shortest dress and the shortest button-up you could think of this whole movie.
She was trying to get extra credit.
Yeah.
That's what she was trying to do.
And she had this scrunched up look on her face to try and look like a ditzy young blonde. Oh my god, I'm so innocent, I don't know what's going on. It's like, why? No explanation whatsoever. And this sort of... She's trying to be like this really calm and, oh my god, I'm so sorry about everything. Demeanor about her. And then she just randomly at the end dives in the water and does like this huge heroic act that was just not her character at all. From nowhere.
And then getting towards the end of the movie, Madame Webb somehow saves her by astro projecting to all 3 girls to save their lives, and then predicting that the guy with all the superpowers is just gonna slow walk to her at the very end of the movie to try and finally get her. And he gets pinned down by 4 or 5 metal beams. The guy's got super strength. He could pick that up with his pinky and throw it away. And he dies after all of this. So we're building to the climactic part, right? What happens is that is about to get Dakota Johnson. So we're thinking there's a fight scene probably going to ensue. No. A sign falls on him. The S, I think it is, if you want to be specific lettering, falls on him and kills him. After all of that, after the 30 years he's got powers after all the multi-billion dollars he's made, and he dies by a sign falling on him because she can predict it in the step that he's going to take to stuff him up. That's the whole movie, guys. That's the whole climactic scene we're getting to.
And he's been hit by a car 3-4 times this film, blown up a little bit, and yet 4 pieces of metal hold him down. He just sits there struggling, trying to get out, like he can't move. How? We literally saw 5 seconds before this, he literally jumped through like a roof that was made out of cement. Jumped through it. Felt nothing. Yet 4 tiny little beams fall on him and he can't get out.
Can't move. Trapped forever. And then towards the end, the final bit of the movie, she is blind Charles Xavier. That's what she is.
Yeah.
She's Professor Hawking.
And she has this weird monologue where she's pretty much Optimus Priming it, saying to all the aliens out there, to all the fellow Autobots, come down to earth. She has this random monologue which just means nothing to you, and you just take nothing away from it because you're like, I hope I never see you ever again on the screen.
To wrap this review up, I'm going to give this movie a 0. It's getting a fat 0. It doesn't deserve to be watched, made, funded, whatever. If Marvel wants to throw money away, put it into my account. Please. I will do better than these motherfuckers will ever do.
Yeah, my review for this film is 0. 0 out of 0. 0 zeros. This is arguably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. The acting is dreadful. The storyline is terrible. The one-liners that Dakota Johnson just kept saying in this movie were just cringe and horrendous and just downright stupid. The main villain was just boring. Couldn't understand what he was saying half the time. And when he did say something, it just sounded like it was voiced over or it was like re-recorded in a booth. Sydney Sweeney, I don't know why she's acting as a 14-year-old when she's that old. You could have gotten anyone else and she's acting like a 14-year-old. The whole dynamic with those 3 girls was just boring. This movie made Marvels look like a fucking 10 out of 10. That's the perfect way to describe this movie. This movie made the Marvels look like the greatest movie of all time.
Masterpiece.
And that's saying something. I hope this movie dies in a fire and is never ever shown ever again anywhere. And I don't know what's going on with Marvel, but they need to get their act together. What they've just put out is horrible. It's seriously just the worst movie you could ever see in your life. There's no good things about this movie.
Anyway, guys, it's been another NCut movie review. Don't forget to like and drop the sub.
Was this one of the worst movies you've ever seen? Yes or no? Because for me, it was. It has to be top 10, top 5 for the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
It's my top 3, on God. Put that on something. Anyway, guys, peace, we out.
Peace.
And cut.